Gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Late night, it's a late night show, and I just couldn't help myself, man. I was gonna wait till the morning, but this news is just too good. It was just too good. So, yeah, it's 9 a.m. right now where I'm at, so it's not that late, but I know Eastern. You guys are living in some crazy 2 hour time zone. It's 11 p.m. for you, so pretty hard being 2 hours ahead. But yes, the show must go on. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court just dropped a very important decision. Yesterday, they made a different important decision, and today they made another one. This is yet another Supreme Court ruling in favor of Trump. What does that say? Does that say the Supreme Court is just so smart? Or does that indicate more of just how corrupt the lower courts are? How inconsistent these judges in the district courts across the country have been. So the Supreme Court just made the ruling tonight in the food stamps case where Democrats were trying to force the Trump administration into a corner, where having legal rulings forcing them to pay out food stamps to the EBT warriors would have probably put them in a very bad position. So we're going to be talking all about that. And I apologize if my camera just goes black, in the middle of the show. It's just been acting up. I've been trying to fix it, but I got lucky that it came on before the show, but it was kind of concerning me because it was showing zero battery, and I was like, no, it's been plugged in for years. I've never taken the charger off. Maybe that's probably why. Maybe that's why the battery is just dying. Anyways, let's get into the story here. I don't want to waste any time. Rolex doesn't make belts. No need to waste time. That's such a deep joke. I want you to think about that joke, okay? Let's get into the story here. The Supreme Court has ruled, actually, no, not the entire Supreme Court. Judge Ketanji Ninja Brown Jackson, Joe Biden's sole appointee to the Supreme Court, has ruled in favor of Trump. So the Supreme Court has allowed the Trump administration to temporarily block SNAP benefits. No, I don't know why they're putting up this. It's MSDNC. Oh, that's why the whole thing is so blue. I thought this was NBC. NBC would have been a little bit more neutral. MSNBC is saying it's the Trump administration that wants to block SNAP benefits. No, you doofuses. The government is shut down because Chuck Sniffer is unwilling to negotiate. I could have said a lot more worse things than what I just said. I just spared you, Chuck. Okay, I spared you. The Supreme Court blocked the lower court's ruling ordering the Trump administration to fully fund food benefits for millions of hungry Americans. I get it. They're hungry. And yeah, there are legitimate people on food stamps that need it. I'm not a cruel person. I actually think the government, has areas it can help. I just happen to have a different vision of what they should do with welfare. I think the welfare programs ultimately do more bad than good. But the way they word this is so annoying to me. I wish I was on NBC. The MS in there just makes it worse. All right, so they're throwing the key program into further chaos as the government shutdown drags on. In a 2-page order issued Friday, Justice Keninja Brown Jackson granted the administration a temporary reprieve from paying full food aid benefits for November. A district court had earlier ordered that they be paid by the end of Friday, so by the end of the day. So the Supreme Court literally made a last-minute decision. Okay, let me explain what's been going on with the food benefits. And we're going to read the ruling from our favorite Supreme Court justice. I said she was a dummy because she couldn't even define what a woman was. But because of this ruling, she is now female Clarence Thomas. She's now the best. I love her. She's now the beautiful Keninja Brown Jackson. Okay? She's now the much more beautiful, pretty Clarence Thomas because she just made this good ruling. I think she has her own reason for doing it. It's a pretty sinister reason when I talk about it. but I think it's an important decision because it's consistent with the Constitution and with everything else we know about how the country is supposed to operate. So here's how this whole thing started. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats decided not to vote on a continuing resolution, which is just a resolution to continue spending levels as they have been going. So the Republicans came up with a 24-page CR. It passed the House, and Mike Johnson said, all right, House Republicans, we did our job. You guys can go on and do your holidays. You know, MTG, you can go run for president, according to fake news, even though she never, said that. Go do your thing in your districts. And then the Senate was supposed to vote on it, and it was expected that the Democrats would allow the CR to go through. Because it was a CR that was, okay, that's what I meant by my camera will go dark at some point. Do you guys notice what I just, oh man, this is so disheartening. Please just, I turned it on and off. Let's see if it works. That's so disheartening, man. Man. This is annoying. Please just work. I'm so annoyed by this. I'm so annoyed. This is so annoying. All right, look, we'll turn off the camera for. Look, it doesn't help you telling me there's a black screen because this is exactly what I was not wanting to see happen. But look, I'm already black anyways, right? So we'll just be blacker now. Blacker Carlson is on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so the Senate was supposed to vote, and the expectation was that because the CR was from Biden funding levels, they would have voted for it because it was something Democrats would have approved in the past. They've approved CRs before as a minority party and as a majority party. Republicans have given votes when necessary. But this time around, Chuck Sniffer and the Democrats realized that they could use the government shutdown to their benefit to juice up their base to go vote in the elections that took place on Tuesday. So they allowed the government to be shut down up until this point, and guess what? It worked. Democrats all over the country were so angry that a lot of them went out and voted. Another reason Democrats are saying they're shutting down the government is because they say Republicans are not willing to negotiate on tax credits that were put in place, subsidies essentially, that were put in place to help premiums go down, because the Affordable Care Act, surprisingly or unsurprising to anyone, actually didn't work in making health care affordable. It's the Unaffordable Care Act. So they had to impose these subsidies to bring down cost. And those subsidies were set to expire not this fiscal year that ended in September, but actually in December. So Republicans are confused, like, hey, we have time to negotiate this. The CR gives us funding for a couple more weeks while we negotiate actual appropriations for the next fiscal year. So we can include the negotiation for these Obamacare tax credits coming up. But you're acting like they already expired when they're expiring in December. And so everyone was shocked when Democrats just blatantly ignored that logic and shut down the government anyways. Someone sent $10 and said for batteries. Oh my gosh. I'm getting roasted. This camera is embarrassing me, man. Let me see if I can turn it on and off. It's not doing any. Okay, it says battery exhausted. Okay, yeah. So it is the battery, actually. It's been plugged in. Oh, it's not even charging right now. Oh, I think I know what's wrong. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I know what's wrong. Oh, it's... Okay, so I just plugged it in. So, okay, I think the charger's actually messed up. Okay, I understand now. Let me see if I can just turn this on. Let's see. Does that work? Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. This is ruining the show, I know. But, look, this is the ghetto show over here. Okay. Let's do this. Give me a sec. Alright. Let's see if this reaches up here. It does. Okay. See if that works. Okay, I think I fixed it. Yeah, just plugged in my phone charger, see if it works. Yeah, sorry about that. Guys, look, I'm black. This is already known. All right. So the Democrats decided not to fund the government, and now it's been shut down. But the government always has emergency funds. So the Department of Defense has emergency funds that they can fall back on. Those funds are supposed to be monies that were saved from cutting cost, but because our government always runs a deficit and these agencies never reduce their budgets, they never save any money. So they're always running out of money as soon as the government shuts down and there are no appropriations from Congress. Ironically enough, we still have to pay taxes even though the government doesn't work. So why are we paying taxes? If the government shuts down, there needs to be a law that says citizens just stop paying taxes. You know, they take all their money back from their W-2 jobs. So this is really messing me up, man. This camera thing. I'm not this black. You guys can't even see me. Look, this is what happens when you do a show at night. No one can see you. It's George Soros. George Soros is doing this to me. George, soon to be in Soros. All right. So Keninja Brown Jackson heard a case. Like I was talking about yesterday, these Supreme Court justices are assigned different circuits. Samuel Alito is responsible for the Fifth Circuit. The Eighth Circuit is where Clarence Thomas presides over. So Florida, Georgia, and I think Alabama is the Eighth Circuit. And then Mississippi, not Tennessee, Arkansas, I believe, maybe not, Texas for sure, are in the Fifth Circuit. And so the First Circuit Court of Appeals, will have different states. So she's responsible for the Second Circuit. Keninja Brown Jackson is responsible for the Second Circuit. And so here is her ruling on the emergency application from the Trump administration to make sure that they're not being forced to spend imaginary emergency funds to fund SNAP benefits, because they set that money aside for actual emergencies. Like if there was a flood somewhere and the government was closed, the government would still have the ability to respond. And these judges in the lower courts were trying to force the administration to go spend that money on food stamps, which, look, I understand are important for some, but they're not important to the degree of a national emergency, So the applicants are seeking a stay of two orders. A stay just means, an invalidation of preliminary injunctions. So, and that was the case from Rhode Island and some other case. These orders require the applicants to fully fund benefits for the SNAP program for the month of November and to distribute that funding by the end of the day on November 7th. Earlier today, the applicants asked the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit to stay the district court's orders pending appeal and to issue an administrative stay to facilitate its consideration of that stay motion. At 6:08 p.m., the First Circuit denied the applicant's request for an administrative stay, but stated that it intends to issue a decision on the stay pending appeal motion as quickly as possible. The applicants filed an injunction in this court this evening requesting a stay of the two district court orders pending the disposition of the government's appeal to the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. And if the Court of Appeals affirms those orders pending the timely filing and disposition of a petition for a writ of certiorari in this court, application 1, the applicants assert that without intervention from the court, they will have to transfer an estimated $4 billion by tonight to fund SNAP benefits through November. Given the First Circuit's representations, an administrative stay is required to facilitate the First Circuit's expeditious resolution of the pending stay motion. It is ordered that the district court's orders are hereby administratively stayed pending disposition of the motion for a stay pending appeal in the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit in that case. This administrative stay will terminate 48 hours after the First Circuit's resolution of the pending motion, which the First Circuit is expected to issue with dispatch. So she didn't really go into the merits of the argument, but she's saying this is an administrative stay because that district court judge gave the Trump administration an impossible timeline. An impossible timeline. She said by Friday. And the reason she said Friday is because I guess SNAP benefits are paid out weekly or they're paid out monthly. I'm not exactly sure, but if he paid it out by Friday, it would have been different than saying by next Friday, right? It would have been a completely different situation. And what this does now is it gives that First Circuit the chance to look at the case. So the district court screwed this so much, screwed the administration so much that she didn't even give the First Circuit a chance to review an appeal. When judges make decisions that have timelines involved, they usually have to give some leeway to the various parties. The applicant, so the petitioners, to file their appeal, and then enough time, reasonable time, for the appellate courts to make a decision, and that decision have a degree of seriousness to it. She can't just make a decision and say, hey, by Friday midnight, you better have this done. 11:59 p.m. If you don't have this done, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court. Dragging my president to court again. Yeah, that's not a new thing. They've been doing that for a long time. So anyways, this is an important decision because it stops everything. It stops everything in its tracks, and it says that, hey, until that First Circuit makes a decision, nothing's going to happen. And so the media is going to be melting down, and the left is going to be melting down because their precious DEI Judge KBJ, Keninja Brown Jackson, is the one that issued this ruling in favor of the administration. And again, I'm going to reiterate my desire to see judges that consistently get overturned on appeal get invalidated or permanently enjoined for a period of time from hearing cases pertaining to the parties they ruled against. If they're constantly ruling against Trump at the lower courts, those same lower courts should just be kicked off every case. They should be recused forcefully. It's really annoying every time we think we're getting a win for a judge to just come in and ruin it all. So this is a huge, huge decision coming in here very late at night. So, yeah, that's the news. That is the news, ladies and gentlemen. There was something else I wanted to talk about, which was the filibuster. So President Trump said this at the Oval Office. Well, it wasn't actually the Oval Office, but it was a bilateral with some countries, I believe. Hungary was certainly there. So the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, was there.
Here's some of the things that would pass if we terminated the filibuster. Voter ID, no mail-in voting, no cash bail, no men and women's sports, no welfare for illegals. You could go on and on. This is 2 pages of things we'd do if you did that. Without it, I don't know that you pass anything because you can't deal with them. They're really irrational. They really are. But I was happy to see that a tremendous liability to this country, a woman that made herself rich in this country, Nancy Pelosi, has quit, and she'll be out of here pretty soon. And I consider that to be a great asset for America.
This guy he's not saying no goodbye. He's saying bad bye. He's saying don't come again. Goodbye. Okay, so then I tweeted this in reply. If Republicans get rid of the filibuster and enact all of Trump's game-changing policies, they would shut Democrats out of the White House for like 20 years, which is what Jeffersonian Republicans did to the Federalist. Democrats would be forced to change their platform entirely to have any chance of getting elected. And I got a lot of pushback, right? This person says I flip-flopped because I once tweeted that Kyrsten Sinema voted to keep the filibuster while wearing red, and I said I have a new crush on Capitol. Why did I tweet that? Oh my gosh. Why did I tweet that, man? Kyrsten Sinema. Why did I do that? Okay, anyways, and this person says you people flip-flop a lot, saying Republicans flip-flop a lot. And then I said, I didn't flip-flop. My position is not hard to understand. Republicans would use it to safeguard the Constitution and the status quo, and Democrats would use it to wreck the country. In a partisan way, I support my side doing the thing the other side already tried to do. And for whatever reason, ladies and gentlemen, people think I'm not biased. I understand my bias. I would support Republicans doing something Democrats tried to do already. I don't say, oh, Republicans shouldn't do it either. No, no, no. I want Republicans to do it before Democrats do it. I'm I am very aware of all my biases, okay? If Trump tried to invade Venezuela, typically, if Joe Biden would do something like that, I would say, no, he's a warmonger. But when Trump is doing it, I support it. Because in principle, I support a favorable U.S. regime in Venezuela. I believe in the Monroe Doctrine, authored by the great John Quincy Adams, which says that Europe should stay out of America's business, not just America's, but the Americas, the new republics, the new countries that were springing out and gaining their independence from the European colonizers and settlers. So, yes, but I support Trump doing it because I know he's doing it for a strategic benefit to America. If Joe Biden did the same thing, I know it would hurt America because everything that guy did hurt us. He opened the border and hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans poured in and they need to go back. And if we get a favorable regime there and Maduro's gone, and Maria Machado, whatever her name is, if she's made the president by the CIA, I support it. It's hypocritical because I would not support the same thing anywhere else in the world. But I think the Americas is our domain. I don't want us doing coups in Great Britain, but I support the same thing in Cuba and Venezuela. But if Joe Biden did it, I would oppose it. So the filibuster is one of those things that a lot of people are just confused about. They think it was a founding mechanism, like the first Senate president, John Adams, wrote it down, or James Madison and Hamilton and all the other founders that were working on the Constitution, they wrote it down, or it was in the Federalist Papers. It's not in the Constitution. There is no mechanism for a filibuster. You know what else is in the Constitution? You know what else is in the Constitution? The Senate Majority Leader or the Minority Leader. Those aren't roles that are anywhere in the Constitution, but they exist. Same thing with the filibuster. The filibuster is another thing that is not in the Constitution about the Senate, but it exists. The filibuster exists out of a mistake. So John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, when they were vice presidents, Adams was VP under George Washington, and Jefferson was VP under Adams. When they were vice presidents, the Senate had similar rules to the House. There was a motion called the previous question motion, which was essentially to invoke cloture, which means let's end debate on this bill and move on to vote. And the vote to invoke that cloture was only like the majority. So if it was 100 senators, it'd be 51 were needed, but there were way less senators then. Yeah, so whatever the simple majority was, they went with it. So a simple majority could end debate on a bill and then force a vote. So that was the previous question motion. So the House had that. The House had a lot of debate, but the Senate was a more aristocratic institution. There was more decorum in the Senate. Adams really pushed for decorum, and even though he argued with the senators while sitting in the vice president's or Senate president's seat, like he would put his input or add his input into any debate. But the Senate was a lot more chilled. They didn't debate that much. They just moved in a more organized manner. So that rule, the previous question motion, existed in the House to end debates with a simple vote, a simple majority. It was in the Senate until Aaron Burr in 1806. Aaron Burr was vice president under Thomas Jefferson. Aaron Burr decided, you know what? I want to make the Senate rules less redundant and messy. So this guy recommended that they remove all these different mechanisms, all these different things that weren't being used. And one of the things that wasn't being used was the previous question motion. So the Senate used to just invoke cloture on debates with a simple majority. But as soon as that happened, none of them knew what they were doing. They didn't understand it. They didn't have like a huge amount of experience. These people were first-time senators, a lot of them. They didn't really know what they were doing because no one had ever filibustered or tried to hijack debate before. So Aaron Burr accidentally, literally created the filibuster mechanism where a group of senators or even just one senator opens debate on a bill that's been sent to the House or to the Senate by the House, and then that debate keeps going. But before, it used to be where the moment you stop talking, the debate ends automatically. So you had to keep talking, but over time they changed the rules so you didn't have to talk forever and be on the Senate floor for an eternity and piss on the floor and do all that. You didn't have to do that. Some senators still do that long speech, but it's not required as part of the filibuster. Because the way to end a filibuster after this previous question motion rule was eliminated from the Senate was to invoke cloture. And at the time, it required 2/3 of the votes. And it was very hard to get 2/3 of senators from all across the country to agree on anything. So eventually they removed that 2/3 rule and made it 60 votes. Notice how 60 is not 2/3 of 100. It would be 66, right? So they changed it to just 60 votes at some point in the last, few decades. I don't know when they changed it from actual 2/3 to just 60. But the filibuster exists by accident. It's not a founding mechanism in the Constitution. It's not there. There wasn't even a founding mechanism in the original Senate manual, which much of it was written by Thomas Jefferson. He wrote a lot of that manual and created all these, rules of how to engage. And so Adams contributed to it as well. But Aaron Burr ruined it. He's the reason we now have to deal with the filibuster. So when people go, the filibuster, we must protect it, they don't know what they're talking about. Anyways, just get annoyed. Politics is so annoying. Everyone just lies. So this is the rest of the article from MSDNC. They say that in the meantime, the fate of 42 million Americans who receive benefits from the SNAP program hangs in the balance. The Supreme Court just granted our stay. In this case, our attorneys will not stop fighting day and night to defend and advance President Trump's agenda, says Attorney General Pam Bondi. Well, to finish off, this is what the Trump administration is arguing, that it can't fund the program for November because of the government shutdown, which is nearing its 6th week. What Democrats are trying to do is avoid the consequences to their base that come from a government shutdown. They know most of their voters are the ones on food stamps. Yeah, there are conservatives, especially the older ones, on food stamps as well. But I'd say 65% plus are Democrat, the people on these programs. And if you look at it by, demographic breakdowns, I think black women are the biggest recipients, and then it's black men. And I think all of these welfare programs coincide with the destruction of the black nuclear family. In fact, the nuclear family across the country in general, because it's not just in the black community now, it's now spreading. So I think these programs should be shut down. But look, what happens with congressionally appropriated funds that end up in the emergency coffers of government agencies and departments is, by law, they have to keep that money for the purposes set forth by Congress. What those judges ordered the Trump administration to do was take billions of dollars from different agencies, from different avenues, and get that money over into the SNAP program. That's illegal. A judge, well, actually 2 judges, wanted the president to break the law. You can't just take money from all these different programs and put it into SNAP. Even if you found enough money at the USDA to still fund SNAP, I still don't think it's the right use, because that money was appropriated for a reason. If a shutdown happens and government employees aren't getting paid, why should welfare recipients get their welfare? It's just common sense. Like, if everyone's going to get hurt, everyone should get hurt. Certain groups shouldn't be, given priority. The people that work for the government and make an honest living also deserve to get paid. They also deserve to feed their families. They're also going to go hungry. A lot of them live paycheck to paycheck. Not every government job is as a bureaucrat in DC. There are people that work an honest living for the federal government doing honest work. And they're not getting paid. They're not getting priority from the federal courts, forcing the administration to find imaginary money from the money printing tree and pay them. They're not finding that favor. So how is it fair for SNAP recipients to get this huge privilege? So it's a matter of legality and fairness that the Trump administration must fight all of this. After being ordered to act by a district judge, the administration asked the First Circuit Court of Appeals to block that order. The appeals court declined to immediately block the ruling while it considers the appeal, prompting the administration to ask the Supreme Court to block it. As explained, oh my gosh, what just happened? Okay. Solicitor General John Sawyer said to the Supreme Court, as explained, the government, oh my gosh, what's going on? Okay. As explained, the government will be forced to make an irretrievable transfer of billions of dollars by the end of today, absent this court's intervention. And the harms of that decision will vest this evening, regardless of what this court ultimately does with respect to the flawed decisions below. An administrative stay is badly needed. Okay, I thought Kataninja ordered the imposed the administrative stay by herself, as opposed to just an injunction or a different kind of a stay. But it looks like she actually agreed with the Solicitor General from the Trump administration, which is even better. I thought she made up the administrative stay and gave them the bare minimum, but it's what they asked for. Because procedurally, it made no sense what the lower courts asked them to do. Kathy Hoko's in here. All right, I think that's the story. That is the story. I think if they are going to order food stamps, the administration should get to pick who they go to. And they should go to the people that would need it the most. All right, guys, hit that like button if you haven't. If you like the news, please, let's get to 1,000 likes, because that's how the YouTube algorithm pushes these videos out. Let me quickly pray and then I'll get out of here. I got to go to my niece's birthday. It was supposed to be at like 5 p.m. and it's 9. She's turning 6, I think. Look, man, I'm a man. I don't know these birthdays, man. Is she turning 6? 29? Yeah, turning 6. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Good for her, man. All right, Lord, we thank you very much. Thanks for all the wins, and again, the Supreme Court ruling correctly. I pray that the people that are getting harmed by this shutdown get a relief soon, because they deserve it. I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. We're going to start making our prayers topical anytime we do these live streams. Prayers are going to be topical now. The prayers are going to be consistent with the thumbnail and title. All right. She asleep by now? Nah, she's not. She doesn't have school tomorrow. They do. She's in preschool. I had to pick her up once because my sister was. Where was she? Where'd she go? I don't know where she went. But it was so weird, just because I was like, man, that used to be me one time. I'm trying to read some comments, like some questions, before dipping here, I think they should fund the SNAP by taking the funds from all Democrat-only programs. I'd just like the Democrat-only programs to get shut down. I agree with you. You have a lot of programs in the federal government that just shouldn't exist. She ruled this because it makes Trump look bad. Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. I think that would be the sinister reason I was talking about. Forgot to mention it. Yeah, they might rule like this because the headlines would make the Trump administration appear like they're, preventing food stamps from getting paid out. That's not great optics, but if anything, it makes it but it's consistent with the Constitution, and I think that's more important than anything else, right? All right. Are we good? Oh, someone said what happened, so I thought the camera died again. Go to the party. It's not a party now. Everybody left. Everybody left. So it's just going to be me going. Oh, and it's also my nephews. Their birthdays are pretty close. And my brother bought him a phone. How crazy is that? I'm disgusted because I'm like, he's 12. Why does he need a phone? Like, give him some mud. Tell him to make a house. And that's what I was doing when I was 12. There was no internet. Well, there was an internet, but I just couldn't access it. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I promise. There's not going to be another video. I think you guys have had enough of me today, man. I did a video with Jake Lang. If you haven't seen that one out, go check it out if you haven't. Also talked about Elise Stefanik. People are cooking me. They're saying in the comments, George, why don't you love Elise? I like her. I just don't. My kind of congressman is like a Matt Gaetz, So I'm extreme MAGA, and she's kind of like a mix between a typical establishment Republican and that new age Trump Republican. That's why, she kind of just fits where she's at, and I think she would make an excellent governor in New York. That doesn't mean that, she's Trump, because I have a different standard when it comes to who is like MAGA. My standard is like you take a bullet for America and get up and go Trump, fight. Like that's my standard now. So, yeah, maybe when Trump retires from politics, I'll look back and go, man, actually we do have a lot of nice warriors. I just didn't see it because, I expected too much from him. Yeah, but Jake Lang, a great friend of mine, going after Zoran. Oh, I love you guys so much. So I say Zoran Mamkami. That was the name I came up with. And then I noticed in the comments, someone was like, Comrade Mamkami. And I was like, wow, you added to it. I was so happy. I called Lou Valentino, and I was just telling him about it. I said, Lou, man. It wasn't actually Lou. It was Nick Moseder. Yeah. Oh, congratulations to Nick Moseder. He got monetized this afternoon. So Nick has, been fighting for a long time for free, taking a lot of financial hits. And now that we're all back, it's awesome to see him monetized. So he sent me that news, and I was just so happy. Anyways, I'm out of here. Doug in exile. Yeah, me and Doug, we squashed the beef. And, we agree on a lot more than I thought. It's funny because 4 years ago, there were things that Doug would say, and I'd be like, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, he is a very wise guy. He understands politics way better than I do. So Doug is great. And out of the darkness, Quentin is back as well. Congratulations to him, too. He got monetized. This is important because we would all do this for free, right? Like if I got demonetized instead of getting kicked off like permanently, I would have been happy with that. I would have been like, all right, well, you look, okay, well, now I just have to do this for free. We're back to slavery. Back to slavery, but at least let me be a house. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so we would all do it for free. If I was demonetized, it would have been better. Instead of just getting completely kicked off. And, all of us were under the impression that if we got kicked off, we'd, be allowed to create new ones. But that's just not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. When you get kicked off, you're gone forever. Unless they say, George, we're sorry, come back. Please, we miss you. We miss you. And they didn't say that, but it's almost the same. So Out of the Darkness is back, and he's kicking it. So I just like to see everybody do well. Brian CanCon, all my friends are back on YouTube. Nobody has been left out. Neil Johnson. Me and Neil have a surprise. Well, the surprise is Neil is in my state, and I'm going to go meet up with him very soon. So I'm actually going to call him. All right, goodbye, good night. I'm going to the birthday party.